Hello folks, my name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? So this is a video about the Florida school shooting, Parkland school shooting that happened day before yesterday. And yeah, you know, it's always sad when you see these things happening. I didn't really write anything for this particular video, so if you hear me, like, you know, if there's a lot of jump cuts and you hear like cats and shit making noises in the background, that's what it is. You know, and me making mouse clicks and stuff like that, you know, I apologize in advance, but fuck it. So the thing about this is, like, you know, first off, this kind of shit happens constantly. I mean, I actually used to make videos about all of these shootings, you know, and then the thing is, I stopped because they just kept fucking happening over and over and over, and it just seemed like every week I was making another video about somebody, you know, some mass shooting someplace, you know, the fucking movie theater shooting and the Sandy Hook and like, you know, Fort Hood, and it just kept, you know, it just kept happening, and it's like, at some point you have to kind of let it go. You know, there's really not much more you can say about it after it happens 50 times, and it's like, and here's just another one, you know. So what makes this one different than all the other mass shootings out there, right? Not much. And when I say that, it's because when I say there's not much different about it, it's because our reaction as a country is really not that different. You know, we're going, it seems like we go through this ritual. Every time there's a mass shooting, it happens, you know. Bam, a bunch of people get shot. It's in the news for like maybe a day, maybe two. This one actually had a pretty high body count, so it might stick around for a little while. Immediately, all the politicians come out and they give their hopes and prayers, you know. All the Republicans come out, hopes and prayers, hopes and prayers. You know, there was a thing in, I was watching BoJack Horseman, actually, and they like made fun of that. And I remember, you know, on the show, it was like, oh, and this terrible tragedy, you know, hopes and prayers, and it's like absolutely fucking true. That's all we do, you know. Ted Cruz comes on, hopes and prayers, you know. Marco Rubio, hopes and prayers. In the meantime, these fucking guys are taking millions of dollars from the NRA, right? So they're not really gonna do anything about it, you know. The people that can actually pass a law and try to reduce this somehow, you know, they're not going to do shit. They're not going to do shit because they're getting paid to allow, you know, by the gun lobby, you know, by the NRA. That's really all the NRA is. They're a gun lobbyist group, you know. And it's like, so yeah, you know, so much for that shit. That's, you know, don't expect any kind of laws, any kind of gun control, any kind of, any effort at all whatsoever to try to stop these kinds of you know, mass shootings from happening, because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen as long as the Republicans control all three branches of government. You know, it won't happen as long as they control one branch of government. Okay, well, we'll basically have to have, you know, Democrats in all three branches before you'll see any effective gun control. So if you really want this kind of shit to stop happening, right, vote for Democrats. Anyway, going on. So it turns out that this particular guy was tied to the alt-right, right? And if you haven't really heard the details of the story just yet, he's a 19-year-old kid who was suspended. He was actually expelled from his high school, you know, which I assume, you know, 1 or 2 years ago, seeing how he was around 19. So he probably should have graduated last year or maybe the year before. And he was expelled, and he was going to an adult school at the time to get his GED. And you know, yeah, and basically the kid was a fuck up, right? I mean, let's call it for what it is. You know, people go online because whenever this kind of shit happens, people always theorize about things. You know, the kid was mentally ill, that kind of thing. But they only do that. They do it according to what the race of the shooter is. So if the shooter's black, they immediately theorize that the kid was, you know, the black shooter, the kid, whatever, would be like a gang member, you know, part of like some kind of like, you know, drug deal gone wrong or some shit like that. If the shooter is, you know, Middle Eastern, immediately terrorism right off the bat. Doesn't matter if the guy has, if it comes out later that the guy has no known ties to terrorism, right? Or that if he was like actually an American citizen who was radicalized here, which has happened a couple of times. The Fort Hood shooting guy was actually an American citizen. The Orlando shooter was an American citizen, radicalized here, who had no actual contact with ISIS or whatever like that. But immediately they blame terrorism. So, and when the race of the shooter is white, it's mental illness. All right, immediately, right off the bat, everyone, oh, this kid must have been insane. We couldn't see the warning signs. Well, in real life, it turns out this kid was tied to the alt-right, Does that make him not insane? No, but he does have an ideology, a violent ideology that he followed. In fact, there was a group in Florida called the Republic of Florida that apparently he was affiliated with, that he trained with, right? Maybe that's why he had such a high body count, because he actually like did some fucking paramilitary training with a fucking terrorist group, white supremacist group, Republic of Florida. And apparently this group wants to create a white nationalist homeland inside the state of Florida, which is like, if you're gonna create a fucking ethno-state someplace, why the fuck would you choose Florida? I mean, fuck, dude. Too many mosquitoes, but whatever, So that shows the kind of wacky-ass shit that this guy was, like, into. There's further evidence of this on his Instagram page. There's, him wearing a Make America Great Again hat. There's a video out there of this guy wearing that same hat doing target practice. Okay, so it's like, yeah, this dude is, most definitely has ties to the alt-right. And what's funny is that immediately after this shooting thing went live, there's like all the Twitter bots and shit came on and tried to slander him and say that it was the fault of Antifa. So for example, let me pull it up here. Let me look at my tweets. So there was like, there's a couple of very far right accounts out there that actually have a lot of like, a lot of their followers are fucking, Russian Twitter bots and shit like that. Right. But there's one called, like, for example, there's an account called Education for Libs that, he's one of these like far right-wing accounts that has a lot of like Russian bots as its subscribers, and spreading misinformation, basically going on Twitter, immediately after the attack, and like trying to say that this kid was part of Antifa, and that's another thing that's starting to it's like immediately disinformation just flies out. The same thing happened after the Las Vegas shooting. There was a lot of fake stories, people saying that he was part of Antifa. Alex Jones going on and saying like, oh, he's fucking Antifa, he believed in a bunch of Antifa shit. Like, there's a video of Alex Jones actually claiming that he has like an email from a guy from the FBI saying that the Vegas shooter was part of Antifa, and he goes, I'm deleting this right now, It's like, yeah, you're deleting it because you fucking made it up. And it's like, that's the problem here that I see. It's like, we have this systemic problem of crazy people and terrorists and people who believe in violent, ideologies, racist ideologies, shit like that. And they go out and they're able to get their hands on high-powered weapons because the gun laws in this country are so fucked up. Whereas in other countries, these wackos and shit exist, but they can't shoot people. So, it's not like we're the only country on earth to have crazy people or to have like, violent extremists, right? But the body count is so high in the United States because we have these fucking gun laws where they just give them away to everybody. Background checks, fuck that, right? Just go to a gun show and you can buy whatever the fuck you want. Right? Oh, this can't buy. You can buy a semi-automatic, and you can fucking like change it up and mod it out and turn it into a fucking full-blown machine gun. It's ridiculous. It's because we have this stupid fucking ridiculous gun culture of like dumb shit rednecks who think that owning a firearm is what it means to be an American. It's like, no, man. Like, I don't know. That's debating the gun, you know, rights and shit. That's a subject for another video. We'll talk about that later. You know, the subject here is why does this shit keep happening? You know, and I think this whole thing where, like, you know, immediately after there's an event, and all the right-wing media guys come on and try to smear them as Antifa. They try to muddy the waters, and it's a symptom of it's because we're in denial as a nation. We're in denial that this is even a problem, to the point where, you know, the people who actually support, like, you know, the Second Amendment people, those guys, they're in such denial that they can't accept that normal people would do something like this. That people would, you know, that they're contributing to this problem by refusing to let any gun legislation go through. Right. And they're in denial. They're in denial to the point where they have to, like, make up stories, right? And to deflect the responsibility from themselves. So it couldn't possibly, you know, this kid, this fucking shooter couldn't possibly be one of them. So he must be an Antifa guy. He must be insane, you know. He couldn't possibly be just a normal fucking kid who had a gun, who just, you know, flipped his lid one day, or believed in some violent shit, or believed in some shit that they themselves believe as well. You know, like, it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. It's like we can't even admit to ourselves as a nation that we have a problem, you know. It's like an alcoholic who fucking can't admit that, you know, he's an alcoholic, right? And so we are, man, as a country. America is a gunaholic, I guess, you know, whatever you would say, a firearmaholic, I don't know. Somebody out there else can phrase that in a better way to make it sound more eloquent, right? But that's what's fucking happening. It's like we're in denial as a country that this is a problem. Because other countries don't have this problem, you know. England does not have this problem. You don't have people going into schools and blowing each other away in England, all right? You don't see this kind of thing in Norway, you know. When it happens, it's a fucking crazy, you know, in Norway, the last time that somebody went out and shot a bunch of people was a crazy fucking white supremacist guy, you know, Anders Breivik, right? They don't have school shootings in Norway, you know. They don't have school shootings in fucking Canada. Canada is just like us, you know. They hate that, right? Don't ever say that to a Canadian because they'll get mad, but it's the truth. They're just like us. They're Americans without all the stupid hang-ups that Americans have, right? They actually, like, you know, care about their people and their environment, and they care enough to have things like socialized medicine and stuff like that. But, you know, guns aren't illegal in Canada. Anybody can go buy one. They come from a hunting culture background the same way that, you know, cowboy type fucking hunting background, the same way that, you know, the United States, you know, citizens do, right? The same culture, that we basically share the same culture almost. And, like, they don't have school shootings there. They don't have guys going into movie theaters blowing each other away there. Right, you know, and they don't have, and when, you know, if something like this does happen, they don't have crazy people trying to say it's all a false flag, right? That's another thing. It's like, you know, I mean, even in the fucked up countries on the earth, right? Like, you know, Trump's shithole countries, okay? Like, let's say fucking, you know, Nairobi or something. There's a lot of violence in Nairobi, you know? There's a lot of violence in fucking those, you know, Uganda and Chad and stuff like that, right? But they don't have school shootings, okay? I mean, they have, like, you know, real, actual problems that, you know, real people die with, you know, fucking in Africa in general, on that continent, you know. I mean, you gotta remember, Africa is a giant continent with lots of different countries and stuff, but there's, like, real social problems there. I'm not trying to belittle them or to lessen the problems they have there, but they don't have random children going in and blowing away other children. Okay, that kind of shit doesn't really happen there, right? It doesn't happen in the Far East either. You know, in you know, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. You know, certainly fucking Japan doesn't fucking happen. China, it doesn't happen. Like, I read a story once about a guy who went on a knifing spree in China, and he ran around with a knife and he stabbed 22 people. You know how many people died from that? One. All right? I mean, now can you imagine if the guy had a gun? Okay, how many people would be dead now from his random shooting spree? You know, do you think, I mean, that's just the plain fucking fact, because that's another argument you'll get from gun people. They'll say shit like, oh, well, you can kill people with a car, you can kill people with a knife, you can, like, you know, get a phone book and beat somebody to death with it, but we don't outlaw those things. It's like, no, because those things are not made to kill, you know, people, right? I mean, they're not offensive weapons made to fucking, like, whose intent is to fucking blow people away, right? And when someone goes on a rampage in another country with a knife, the body count is way lower, you know? I mean, we just got to think about, like, what's important to you in this country. What do you care about? Do you care about, you know, actually living in a safe place where you don't have to worry about getting shot? You know, where you can go outside and not have to get blown away by some random fucking wacko? Or do you care about being able to own, like, you know, a fucking submachine gun? Which one do you want? Okay, because it seems like you can't have both, alright? It seems like if we're gonna own these fucking weapons, then this is what's gonna happen, you know? It's unbelievable, and that's the, you know, there really isn't much else to say. We seem to go through this same fucking thing, this same debate, and it seems to happen every, you know, roughly 4 to 6 weeks, right? Because that's really the only time that it actually gets in the news. That's something else you gotta remember. These shootings like this happen constantly, every fucking week. You know, like sometimes, like I remember, you know, last year there was like 2 in one day. I mean, this shit happens constantly. Like, and it's not even, you know, like you're starting to see a lot of them come out of the alt-right guys. Like, in December there was a 21-year-old guy went and shot 2 people. You know, and his name was the fuck was this guy's name? William Edward Atchison, on December 17th, last year. Did you hear about that one? No, I didn't hear about it. It didn't get on the news, you know. You know why? Because fucking only 2 people died. See, it's like it doesn't become newsworthy anymore if it has a low body count, because this shit happens so fucking often. And that's what's wrong with this country. It's like it's become normalized, you know. Pretty soon, what are you gonna do? Just send your kid to school in a bulletproof vest? I mean, I guess that's really it. Just start buying fucking armored cars. Everyone's gonna have to start carrying a gun, just like those stupid fucking libertarian morons want us to do. You know, you ever talk to one of those guys who says shit like, oh, it's you know, good people with guns are the only thing that deter bad people with guns. It's like, yeah, so we should all just be walking around like it's the wild, wild west and shit. Everybody having a sidearm and, you know, fucking pistols and shit, and people blowing each other away in the streets. Like, I don't know, it's ridiculous. Our country is fucked up. Anyway, that's really our country's fucked up, and there's really nothing that we're gonna be able to do about it, really, until we vote out Republicans. That's pretty much it, and hopefully one day we'll be able to do that. I don't know. That's all I got, folks. Adios.